Welcome back to the War Room. We are now joined by Roger Stone. And I know that Roger has some breaking intel out of Somalia. He was sending me some stuff, pretty amazing stuff. Roger, how did you get keen to this breaking information?
Thank you very much for asking, Owen. It's really quite extraordinary. We have learned here at InfoWars.com that Al-Shabab, which is a violent offshoot of ISIS, has taken control of uranium mines in the western part of that country and is now actively selling uranium to the Iranians in violation of the deal that Iran made with the Obama administration regarding the development of nuclear weapons. This happens, incredibly, at a time that the UN peacekeeping mission is actually announced a cutback in their efforts to destroy and contain Al-Shabab. Now, the Trump administration, recognizing that the terrain of Somalia is quite different than, say, Afghanistan. There are no mountains, there are no caves, there are no valleys. This country is incredibly flat. Therefore, the location of these Islamic fanatics is extremely well known, and the Trump administration has been punishing them with a relentless rain of drones. Look, I'm a non-interventionist like you are, Owen. I don't think we ought to be out looking for foreign entanglements where our inherent national interest is not absolutely clear. But in this case, if a terrorist group is selling nuclear material to a nation that would clearly use it on the United States and is very clearly developing a nuclear capability, and we have the ability, not with boots on the ground, but through the use of sophisticated drones to end that, well, then I think it's incumbent on the Trump administration to do so.
And let's be very clear here. This isn't just conjecture. You sent me the actual documents from Ambassador Stephen Schwartz, U.S. Mission to Somalia, United Nations Avenue. This is, I guess, based out of Nairobi that this was sent. But you sent all this to me. Here's the Fox News story. Al-Qaeda affiliate mining uranium to send to Iran. Somalia official warns U.S. ambassador. And now you've got the whole story here. And this is in violation directly of the Obama agreement with Iran. I'm sorry, did Barack Obama do a 3-page Facebook post about that? No, it was about DACA.
Yeah, it's really quite extraordinary. The real question, of course, is that immediately after the announcement by the United Nations that they were going to be trimming back their peacekeeping mission, well, there was a new attack by Al-Shabab on the Somalian government in which hundreds died. So we have an acute foreign policy crisis here. Now, the president ran as a non-interventionist. And as you know, he resisted the recommendations of virtually everyone in his foreign policy apparatus, on his White House staff, and in his cabinet to send 150,000 boots on the ground to to Syria in the immediate aftermath of the surgical strike with Tomahawk missiles on the Somalian airport, on the Syrian airport. This, I think, was a very sound decision by the president. I actually came around to understand the Syrian attack. It was probably irresistible because it sent a very clear message to the North Koreans, to the Iranians, to the Chinese, that Donald Trump was not Barack Obama, that he would not draw a line in the sand and then sit back helplessly watching our adversaries cross that line. No, in Donald Trump, you have a man who means what he says and says what he means. And therefore, the Somalians now are appealing to the U.S. government to end this flow of radioactive material to the Iranians through Al-Shabab. This, to me, looks like one of the many loose ends that President Trump is forced to clean up which are essentially holdovers from the neocon policies of the Bushes and the Clintons, where we have manifested a number of foreign wars where our inherent national interest was not clear.
Well, you're exactly right in what you just said. I'm glad that you said it. And it would appear to me, based on what I'm seeing here, is that you have officials within the Somali government that are saying, hey, look, we've got a terrorist problem here. There's finally a president of the United States that wants to address real terror issues. So please, would you also help us?
I think that's exactly right. Terrific reporting by Catherine Herridge at Fox News, who broke this story. This is how it first came to my attention. And then with my own investigative reporting, I was able to obtain some of these incredible documents, which are a cry for help. Here you have what is actually an attainable military maneuver, and you have a terrorist element that is acting in the direct disinterest of the United States. What we don't know is whether Al-Shabab will next be selling crucial radioactive material to North Korea. That's entirely possible. This is a rogue element that is selling uranium to rogue governments. And therefore, it seems to me that this makes DACA and a number of other foreign policy issues pale in comparison.
Roger, I'm going to read from the document that you sent me, the powerful document that you were just noting. This is from the Federal Republic of Somalia. This communication is an appeal for immediate military assistance to the Federal Republic of Somalia by United States of America warfighting forces with the aid of U.S. intelligence capabilities. Somalia is facing a reconstituted Al-Shabab terror apparatus that has successfully linked up with the regional ISIS network and is capturing territory in central regions of the country. The issue communicated today presents a problem for the larger global community and will not be constrained within the borders of our recovering country. Al-Shabaab forces have captured critical surface exposed uranium deposits in the Galmudug region and are strip mining triuranium octoside for transport to Iran. So there it is. Everything you just said, they're trying to put out to the public, and it seems that this should be something that people are looking at the Obama administration saying, hey, you empowered Iran here. Clinton already did a uranium deal in the past. Why isn't anybody talking about that?
Well, and the other question that's quite obvious is, why are we breaking this news at InfoWars.com? We're the only ones who have the story and bring it to you straight, other than the folks at Fox News, where there are still a few patriots. Where is the New York Times, the Washington Post, Bloomberg, and the others? This seems to me to be a much bigger story, but it shows the insipid and I think insidious activities of Islamic terrorists, and therefore it doesn't make it to page one. Owen, I appreciate your discussion of this and your comments, because I think this is actually one of the biggest stories we have ever broken at InfoWars.com.
Well, and let's be perfectly clear. Something else that's very indicative to me of this story is that ISIS is on the run. We've already heard that ISIS is having to move into the Philippines. Now it looks like they're trying to move into Somalia. So whatever, the Trump administration is doing in the Middle East addressing ISIS, it has them fleeing these regions, Roger, but it's presenting new problems in different regions, and it's being ignored by the press.
Being ignored by the press. Here's the real question. What will the Trump State Department, what will the Trump Defense Department do about this urgent cry for help from the democratically elected government of Somalia? Somalia is a war-torn country where there is very little stability. And therefore, to me, that is the central question. What will the Trump administration do?
We're going to be right back with more from Roger Stone, more from this story that he has broken right here on the War Room. Follow us at War Room Show. Follow him on Twitter, Roger Stone Jr. Follow me at All I Do Is Owen. Folks, thanks to you for making this possible, the latest expansion of InfoWars Live Broadcasting. This is the War Room Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the War Room. We've been tracking Hurricane Irma. We've been showing you the response to DACA. President Trump just continues to take shots to the lower region on his DACA recension or putting it in the hands of Congress. He's doing that for America. Trump gives a great speech on tax reform, putting American workers first. The liberal media completely ignores it. And now Roger Stone joins us as we break news out of Somalia. Al-Shabab fighters attacked a military base near Somalia's southern port city of Kismayu. The attack was on a base in the village of Bula Gudad near Kismayu. Residents in Bula Gudad said the blast was heard and an exchange of gunfire broke out shortly after the first Muslim prayer of the day. Al-Shabab is linked to Al-Qaeda and wants to impose strict Islamic law in Somalia. Now Somalia is reaching out to the global community, specifically the United States government, to do something about these ISIS-linked fighters. Stone has broken the story. And as he said on the last break, the big question is, what is the response going to be from the Trump administration? Roger, do you have any insight as to what that might be?
You know, I really don't yet, Owen. This is still a story developing as far as I can tell. Here it seems to me you have an actually definable, achievable military objective. Unlike our forays into Iraq or Afghanistan, where both the terrain and the history would argue against military invention, Al-Shabab is a sitting duck in a country where they can be targeted, found, and eradicated, and they are involved in an activity which directly threatens the security of the United States, as opposed to the Afghan or Iraq conflicts, where our national interest was never clear to me. I always believed that we went into Iraq largely because Saddam Hussein thumbed his nose at George H.W. Bush in the middle of his failed re-election campaign in 1992. And that this was simply payback. You'll recall that the George W. Bush administration tried to tell us it was about democracy. Democracy? When are the Saudis having their next general election with broad suffrage? I think that would be never. That's when that is. So this is a story that we're going to be monitoring very carefully. It's been a very busy day for me, Owen, because my attorneys filed in the federal court in the District of Columbia a motion to dismiss the Obama-inspired lawsuit against me, President Donald Trump, and the Trump campaign, charging us with collusion with the Russians, saying specifically that Roger Stone acted in coordination with the Russians to hack the emails of the DNC and give them to the journal WikiLeaks, published by journalist Julian Assange. Now, there's any number of reasons why this completely frivolous and bogus lawsuit should be dismissed. First and foremost, of course, is the fact that they can't even prove that the DNC was hacked, never mind that it was hacked by the Russians, or that I had any involvement in something that probably never actually happened. Anybody who saw The Nation magazine about 2 weeks ago knows that a number of counterterrorism experts have now come forward and said that the overwhelming evidence is that to the extent that anything was stolen from the Democratic National Committee, it was downloaded to thumb drives and taken out the back door. You know that a British diplomat has come forward and said that he was among those who passed that data in that format from a disgruntled employee at the DNC, most likely Seth Rich, to WikiLeaks, who then went on to publish it. It's interesting that no one has ever questioned the authenticity or the accuracy of the material published by WikiLeaks. Can the Washington Post or the New York Times make that claim? No, of course, they can't. So what is this lawsuit really about? Well, it's about two things. One, it is about an effort to tie me up and distract me from my efforts to defend the president, and also to warn against what I believe is going to be a deep state coup involving Robert Mueller, James Comey, and perhaps even some around the president to end his presidency and achieve through an extra legal process what they could not achieve at the ballot box, the extinction and end of the Trump presidency. And therefore, I have had no choice but to set up a legal defense fund, because this lawsuit has already cost me in excess of $100,000 in legal fees. We have posted with the court our extensive response and our motion for dismissal. But more importantly, I need the resources to file for sanctions against the lawyers involved in this lawsuit, many who come from very prestigious white shoe law firms. In one case, one former Obama-appointed federal judge, for wasting the court's time. And therefore, if you want to help the Legal Defense Fund, you can go to whoframedrogerstone.com, and we will appreciate anything that you choose to donate. Also on the docket today is the entire question of a debt ceiling deal that involves Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the president. Jack Posovic's going to be joining me to talk about that. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it all means. And then also with us, we have Lucian Wintrich, who's going to talk to us about the mainstream media and the White House press corps and how it really works. So we have a lot of good stuff for you here at the War Room coming up, Owen, and I'm excited about the new show. I think we're off to a great start.
Well, Roger, I want to get back to something you just said that is so paramount and so key for all of these people that want to cry about Trump to be impeached, whether it be for Russia, the hacking, all this thing. There's a cycle here. It starts with hacking, and then it goes to WikiLeaks. And then from WikiLeaks, it goes to the election, and then from the election, it goes back to hacking. And it's all this circle, but the same people that want to point out to all of these things in the cycle, as you pointed out, refuse to recognize one fact, that the content of the WikiLeaks is real, and that is what infected the election. So they will not recognize that resounding truth, no matter what the point is about WikiLeaks or the election or anything. The resounding truth is that the content of the WikiLeaks is real, and that is what cost, or could potentially have cost, Hillary Clinton the election.
No, it's a classic a maneuver of distraction. Let's not focus at the content of the emails. Let's talk about how they were stolen. How they were stolen is almost irrelevant. Roger Stone, Owen Schroyer, we'll be back at the War Room.
Don't go anywhere, folks. Welcome back to the debut of the War Room. Owen Schroyer with you. Roger Stone is with you as well. We've got a roundtable panel that we are about to embark on. Follow us at War Room Show on Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get those subscriptions up and watch us live at that YouTube channel. We're about to change direction here midway through the debut of the War Room. We're going to begin to get into some of the mainstream media and why it's collapsing, and what I believe also hand in hand collapsing with the mainstream liberal media is also the Democrats as a party. Let's go back to Roger Stone. He's got a powerful panel with us as well. What's going on, Roger?
We've got a lot to talk about today. It's a fast-moving day in Washington.
Your phone hasn't stopped ringing since you came on.
No, and I don't want to turn it off because you never know when it might be the president. So it's dangerous to turn it off.
Wait a second. You're not going to be like CNN and MSNBC and turn off the president when he goes live? Wow.
Yeah, well, you gotta make hay while the sun shines. We seem to have some kind of a long-term debt deal that the president has negotiated with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. We're trying to make sense of that now, and therefore joining me for a discussion of this development is none only than our friend Jumpin' Jack Flash, Jack Posobiec. Jack, why don't you slide in here?
Thank you, Roger.
We're a little ad hoc in our new arrangements here at the War Room.
Spared no expense. We're actually here at the palatial D.C. studios of the Gateway Pundit. So thank you very much to Lucian Wintridge and the great folks at Gateway Pundit for allowing us to use the studio today. But yeah, so Owen, I don't know how much you've dug into this deal. I've been kind of going through the particulars on it now, but it seems that in a room together with Republican leaders and Democrat leaders from Congress, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, what President Trump has done in a shocking manner, if you believe mainstream media headlines, he has sided with the Democrats in going for this Hurricane Harvey bill, which allows for $8 billion for Hurricane Harvey funding, an extension on government funding for the next 3 months, which would put us at December 15th, my birthday, and also right before Christmas, and as well as an extension on the debt ceiling, a lifting of the debt ceiling. So what a lot of people are saying is that the president chose this deal because it shows that he's willing to essentially look to McConnell and Ryan and say, I don't need you. I'll go make a deal with the other side if it serves my purposes, if I feel it serves my agenda better. Roger, what do you think the political ramifications of that would be?
Well, I think there has to be a greater examination of the rudimentary pieces of the deal. The American people want to see progress. They don't want to see gridlock in Congress. And what we've seen so far is the president putting forward solid proposals for reform, only to be blocked by the elite leadership of both the Democrats and the Republicans working together. That has only one outcome, potentially, under the current rubric, and that is President Donald Trump gets blamed for the inability to motivate his own party to support his reforms. This is why I have been a strong advocate for taking on, in a triangulation type strategy, the leadership of both parties. There's no reason why President Trump should bear the incompetence or inability of House and Senate Republicans to get behind a reform program. Now the president, in what can only be called a breathtaking move, appears to have gone around Ryan and McConnell directly to the Democrats to reach a deal. Whether the American people see this deal as good public policy, whether they see it as consistent with the president's platform and proposals, whether they see it as beneficial to the country, is yet to be determined. And until we see how this sits with the voters, it's hard to say what the political impact will be. I remind you of my favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln, who said, quote, "Public opinion is everything."
Well, it's amazing to me, guys. Actually, if you'll pull that New York Times story back up, you have Chuck Schumer in the Oval Office with Donald Trump.
Yeah, these
making a deal
are unprecedented. Chuck Schumer,
Chuck Schumer pretends like Trump is the plague on humanity. Right. How is he cutting deals with Trump?
And this is Chuck Schumer, who spoke at the inauguration before the Trump crowd there. I myself was one of them, booed him off the stage. So loudly were the boos that you couldn't actually hear a word that he was saying. Now, I, of course, wasn't booing myself. I was merely recording the boos of others around me.
If you were, we wouldn't hold it against you if you were.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, just to try it on for size. I may have booed, but I didn't inhale. But what we saw now, what we're seeing now, is these unprecedented optics of the president physically embracing one of his most strident and ardent foes. So what this means is, again, and Roger, you've brought up this quality of Trump in the past, is that Donald Trump is unpredictable. No one could have predicted this today, and it adds an element of a wild card into any future negotiations with the president.
There's no question. The president likes to confound his critics. He likes the big play. He likes to do the unexpected. And in many ways, when it comes to public relations, he is still a master of the game. But I would point out that his cooperation with Schumer goes well beyond this deal. Why the president would support, through Jeff Sessions, U.S. attorney appointees in both Albany and New York, who would have been the same people appointed by Hillary Clinton with the support of Chuck Schumer, is a mystery. a mystery that cannot be solved. We know that New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman actually attempted to extort Donald Trump and his daughter Ivanka, saying that in return for campaign contributions, he would not pursue the Trump University case where there were complaints filed in that state. The U.S. attorney, either in Albany or New York City, who would have jurisdiction in this matter, should bring a criminal complaint regarding Mr. Schneiderman.
And I should point out, Roger, not to stop you, but Schneiderman, who we now find who has been involved with these financial issues, is now cooperating part and parcel with the Mueller investigation, clearly injecting partisan politics into what's supposedly an independent counsel.
Well, not only that, but Mr. Schneiderman was caught red-handed trying to shake the Exxon executives down for campaign contributions. Eric Schneiderman may be the single most corrupt politician in office today. He should be targeted by the U.S. attorneys in New York and Albany. And I would predict to you, Jack and Owen, that as more is known about his activities, that Mr. Schneiderman, rather than Paul Manafort, will find himself in the crosshairs.
So Schneiderman might be another one of these guys shaking in their shoes like a Debbie Wasserman Schultz is right now. And to talk about the politics of this, guys, to me, this is a win for Trump and a loss for the Democrats and the Republicans. See, the Democrats are all excited in the moment. They're like, all right, we finally struck a deal with Trump. We struck this deal. We got something accomplished. Oh, but wait, our lapdogs in the media can't report on it because Trump got what he wanted. So they can't report that the Democrats gave what Trump wanted, so this victory for the Democrats will stay behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the Republicans that aren't working with Trump, the rhinos like Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, they won't work with Trump. So he just says, okay, I don't need you. I'll get what I want done with the Democrats that hate my guts. So now he deals a loss to the Republicans, who now they have to know Trump can win without him. And he also rubs it in the Democrats' face by saying, I made a deal with you, but the media is not going to cover it. Ha ha. So Trump completely wins.
Very, very good analysis, Owen. Now is probably a good time to remind you that you can't get this kind of first-rate political analysis just anywhere, and therefore it's a good time for you to go to the InfoWars.com store, where the Emmerich Essential line of organic household products are now 50% off. These are the very best. Zinc oxide, herbal bug spray, concentrated peppermint mouthwash. These are the products that help us keep InfoWars on the air, vibrant and alive. So folks, please go to the store. We need your support. We don't have a George Soros writing giant checks for us backstage. We can only rely on patriots like you.
Welcome back to the War Room. Owen Schroyer, Roger Stone, Jack Posobiec with you. We've got still an hour and 13 minutes left of this broadcast and a ton of news to cover yet. Landfall in Puerto Rico, Hurricane Irma is devastating Caribbean islands, the lower Antilles right now. Miami is holding off evacuation orders for now, and 2 nuclear power plants are in the path of Hurricane Irma. They are located in South Florida. Let's get back with Roger Stone and Jack Posobiec. We were just discussing how Trump has kind of checkmated here the media with his deal, getting the money for the support of Hurricane Harvey victims, making the deal with the Democrats.
As you can see, Owen, Jack has stepped out, and joining me now is Lucian Wintrich from the Gateway Pundit, who has some observations about the mainstream media, the Washington Press Corps, and exactly how they're going to cover this story. You had some, I think, excellent analysis about the conundrum here, where the media will want to extol the great virtues of the Democrats for making this deal and talk about how they took Trump to the cleaners, yet they will never highlight what it is that Donald Trump got from the deal. Lucian, your observations?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing with the mainstream media, with CNN, MSNBC, is they're completely controlling and coordinating, colluding with each other to come out with narratives against this administration. I mean, I'm in the White House briefing room every day where you can actually witness them all on the same Slack panels, the same group text messages. We need to nail the administration in this way. They'll funnel questions to each other. which is, you know, far different than what you guys are doing over there at InfoWars, what we're doing at the Gateway Pundit, what Breitbart's doing, independent conservative journalists trying to get to the bottom of the
Let me just hold you up for a second, because it sounds to me like you're talking about certain big network media pundits, you know, in the room with you, trying to coordinate with one another to come at the White House representatives. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is like literal kindergarten tactics against the teacher.
Very well put. And that's about the mentality that we're dealing with. First of all, there's a visceral cultural hatred of the president that I'm not even sure he understands. This goes far beyond ideology, far beyond philosophy. This is elitism. It's raw elitism. The president is self-made. The president comes from Queen's roots. The president is a giant believer in free enterprise. And those are all dirty words to the elite mainstream media, who frankly became fat and happy because for the last 100 years, they've had a complete monopoly on the dissemination of political information. If it didn't happen on ABC, NBC, or CBS, why, it didn't happen at all. The evolution of a majority of Americans now getting their information through the internet via a handheld device or an iPad or a PC has revolutionized everything. As television watchers went to the internet to try to find CNN, didn't take them very long to find out that there are much better things to watch.
Yeah, that's not hard at all.
For example.
Yeah, exactly. That's not hard at all. That's how someone like me ends up here. Roger, I hate to interrupt you, but I want to go back to what Lucian just talked about. When you're in the White House press briefings and you have media members colluding with one another to try to come at Trump or to try to come at whoever's doing the press briefing. I mean, to me, when I'm out in the streets and I deal with these protesters that hate America, I'm not an angry person, but I get angry because I feel like they hate my country. They're trying to wreck my prosperity. They're trying to wreck this country. I mean, do you get that same emotion when you witness this stuff?
I mean, you know, it was honestly shocking to me because I came into the White House press office, back in February, and these journalists who are in that room, they're supposed to be some of the nation's best. They are supposed to be objective. They're supposed to be journalists, quite frankly. And more and more, the longer I've been in that room, that is simply not the case. And this isn't a matter of, a staff member at CNN is funneling something to Jim Acosta. It's literally all of these establishment media folk in that room. They are coordinating opposition to this administration, to the presidency. And they are coming up with, I mean, it's wild watching them create and then spin this propaganda that has gotten in the way of good policy time and time again. And I personally, and I'm going to throw this over to Roger. So, Roger, you've been observing what the leftist mainstream media has been doing since the 60s. Has it ever been this bad?
Well, before, because they had a total monopoly, because there was no place else to go, there was no forum for an alternative narrative. The InfoWars of its time literally did not exist. And therefore, the mainstream media became more and more arrogant, more and more smug, and more certain about their being right about everything. Now what we've seen is the tech left has figured out that this has become a giant mistake, that they need to get the toothpaste back in the tube. My God, we actually have a free press. We actually have a broad and diverse press, and that's the last thing they want. This is why the CNN is so virulent and so vicious in their attempts to attack not only the president and his wife, and his family, and his administration, but anybody who represents them. That's why watching patriots like Ed Martin and Michael Caputo go there on CNN and do battle has really been heartening. Last night I watched a panel with Anderson Cooper in which Ed Martin took on 5 radical liberals. They were drooling with hatred. And by the way, I thought he beat them back extraordinarily well. Ed Martin, somebody we need to get back on here at the War Room.
So he's basically taken the place of Jeffrey Lord, who they had to let go because they couldn't take Jeffrey Lord stomping them down every night.
Yeah, and we know that anytime you get an effective conservative on, and he challenges Ana Navarro, the airhead diva, who claims to be a Republican strategist, but has been giving to Bob Menendez and Deborah Wasserman Schultz, and who, based on my research, has never actually provided strategy for any Republican candidate running for any office anywhere on the face of the planet. Whenever you challenge her, she goes running to management to complain. Oh, I can't go on with Ed Martin. I can't go on with Michael Caputo. I can't go on with anybody who will actually challenge my lack of credentials, my lack of expertise, or my claims to be a Republican. It's really pretty pathetic.
Honestly, it's an amazing thing to witness all these pathetic members of the media. It's like, where do you stop? I mean, Don Lemon, Anderson Cooper, Ana Navarro, Rachel Maddow, the list just goes on and on and on. But I want to get back to what the feeling is like for you, Lucian, when you're in this room with these people. I mean, did you witness any of Donald Trump's smashing of Acosta? Did you witness any of that firsthand?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely, absolutely incredible. And, from what I've heard through the grapevine, people at CNN, these propagandists over at CNN, at MSNBC, they're supposed to be hiding their actual motives a little bit better than Acosta has been doing. They're supposed to at least pretend that they're unbiased. So from what I've heard, Acosta at this point is actually on his way out. He's not as clever as some of these other people. But, it really is. I was actually talking to Gorka about this earlier this week. And while he shied away from using the term deep state, it does seem like a lot of these mainstream media people in that room are also colluding with the deep state, with an intense establishment that is continuously at every turn trying to hurt this administration. I mean, my first week, even us being in there, the Gateway Pundit being in there, was a major challenge to the mainstream media stronghold. I won't mention the correspondent's name, but I was called a Nazi. He said, "Oh, do you believe in race mixing?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, well, you write for the Gateway Pundit. That's conservative. So you must be all these labels." It's honestly astonishing that these people, they're more or less pulling up things from Media Matters, from the ADL, which is right now being run by one of Obama's former staffers, as I'm sure you know, and they are just running this left and right to again control the narrative, to hurt the administration, and to try to downplay actual conservative journalism, or even objective journalism for that matter.
Well, you know what? I look at you, and I think that the same reason why they hate you is the same reason why they hate me. We're young, we're smarter, we're better than them, we understand the big picture, and they hate it. They're threatened by you. That's the truth. They are threatened by you, and that's why they call you a Nazi.
I think that's exactly right. But let me congratulate you on the great launch here, Owen, of a terrific show. Jack and I are particularly glad to see that you shaved today. We are launching the Razor
You got
Blades.
lucky. You got lucky.
We are launching the Razor Blades for Cernovich campaign almost immediately.